In this video, I'm gonna show you my well-tested recipe for Greek-style chicken and potatoes. This is a one-pan dish that only takes about 15 minutes of active prep time, and because of the way that it cooks, it delivers truly unique flavors and textures that you just can't get in any other dish. To get started, I'm gonna grab just over 2 pounds of bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, which should be about 4 large pieces, give or take. And if you're wondering about breasts, definitely don't, because they are way too lean, and with the long, slow cooking process that we're using here, they'll get super dry and they'll be really unpleasant to eat. Now, to get these chicken thighs prepared to be cooked, I actually need to start by coming around the outside and cleaning up the excessive chicken fat and any extra chicken skin, which for these standard issue cheap chicken thighs that I got at the grocery store, they actually have quite a lot of this. They're cheap for a reason, guys. They really haven't had a lot of extra butchering. And if we left all that stuff on there, it would render excessive chicken fat into the potatoes and it would make the dish eat really greasy. So to clean these up, I'm just gonna take a little paring knife and trim right along the edge where the skin and the chicken start to line up. You don't have to be crazy about this. You just wanna make sure you're cleaning up anything that might be considered excessive. And I also wanna flip this over onto the backside because there can be a pretty excessive amount of fat that's hanging on the inside of the thigh. So I'll just zip that out. And I think that looks really pro, actually. We've got the right amount of skin, it's proportional to the amount of meat, and it looks good. So once it's fully cooked and rendered, it's gonna present beautifully. And once I've got 4 thighs that are nicely cleaned up like this, I'm just gonna come back and give them a quick seasoning with salt. Just a light little 2-finger pinch per thigh per side. Then I'll let the salt sit on the outside of the meat for about 60 minutes or so. Now, I've explained this many times in many videos, but I'll say it again. Dry brining ahead of time helps the meat hold on to its moisture during cooking, and it helps it be more seasoned throughout. This is particularly important for this Greek chicken and potatoes recipe though, because we're gonna be cooking the chicken thighs with medium heat for a very long period of time, so there's a really high probability of them getting dried out just through sheer evaporation alone. So adding the salt, like I said, helps it hold on to all of that moisture. So after that 90-minute medium heat bake, it comes out super juicy and succulent instead of mid and kind of dry and unsatisfying. So I really wouldn't skip it. Probably an easier way would be to plan ahead actually and salt these the day before, so that way they're nice and brined, so that you can save yourself that hour of prep time day of. Once these are salted, I'm gonna throw them in the fridge to hang out while I prep everything else. Next, I need to make the thing that makes this entire dish taste good, which is the Greek marinade. So for that, I've got a medium bowl here, and into it, I'm gonna add 50 grams of extra virgin olive oil, 5 grams of dried oregano. I would not sub fresh because they're very different ingredients. Then I'll add in 5 grams of ground black pepper, 2 to 3 grams of dried thyme. You could sub in fresh thyme for that if you don't have dried, because the 2 ingredients are much closer than oregano. Then I'm gonna take 45 grams of garlic cloves and smush it with a garlic press. By the way, this is the final production version of the Lagerstrom Home Goods garlic press that I've been working on for well over a year and a half now. The one that I've been telling you guys is coming out soon, but then like another month goes by and then another month. But I can really say at this point, it's coming soon. They finished the production on these things this week, and now they're putting them into boxes, and they're going to be available hopefully within the next 5 weeks or so. So if you want to know about these when they come out, again, I'll throw a link down in the description. You can sign up for the mailing list and you'll find out about them the first day that they come out. If you want to use garlic powder instead of fresh garlic, you could sub in, I would say 10 grams would be a good match for 45 grams of fresh. But honestly, you should just get a big bag of fresh garlic cloves that are pre-peeled. Even if you don't eat a ton of garlic, you can throw the extra stuff that you're afraid is going to go to waste into a Ziploc baggie and keep it in the freezer until the next time you want garlic. Behind the garlic, I'm going to take a large lemon and rip the zest off with my microplane. To do that, I'm just rolling it forward and pulling it back so I don't dig too deep and get the bitter rind underneath the outer part of the zest. Oh, now there's oregano all over it. No! Then finally, I'll take the juice of half of that lemon, which is about 20 to 30 grams. You can go a little bit higher on the lemon if you like things pretty tart, but you have to be careful. Lemons can get pretty sour. Then once everything's in the bowl, I'll just jump in with the whisk and stir to get it combined. Somebody out there right now in the comments is like, that's an insane amount of garlic for only 4 chicken thighs. That's true if you're thinking of this in terms of the garlic being raw. You just gotta keep in mind that this is gonna be slow roasted for almost 90 minutes. And in that time, this really pungent, hot, fresh garlic flavor is gonna be slowly transformed and melted into this sweet, tender, roasty garlic flavor that is way less intense and honestly way more delicious. Okay, once we have a herby garlic paste here, I'm gonna set this aside, then grab 2 magically pre-peeled potatoes from my potato drawer and get these chopped up for the dish. For these, I wanna cut the potatoes through the widest part. So to think of it, if you're a person, instead of cutting it straight down the middle like this, you wanna cut the potatoes in half like this. This is gonna give us the most uniform wedges. So for that, zip, then I'll take those halves and cut them in half, and then I'll cut those halves into 3 to 4 chunky wedges like that. And if you're wondering why I'm cutting these so chunky, it's basically so they don't get overcooked. We need to time the potato cooking with the chicken cooking, since this is what I call an integrated dish, meaning everything cooks together in the same place at the same time. So you need to scale things in a way so that the heat penetrates them over the same time period, basically. One more time, I'll cut this in half and then cut that half into some giant chunks. By the way, this is a russet style potato, which I think is the best for this dish. I tested Yukon Golds as well, but they are higher moisture, lower starch than a russet, so they don't really crisp up or take on any meaningful browning, which brings a lot of flavor. The one thing that Yukon Golds have going for them though is that they are high pectin, which means that they hold on to their texture really well after long cooking. But also they have high moisture, so sometimes they are pretty easy to get overcooked. Anyways, I tried Yukon Golds a bunch of times. They were fine, but I liked russets better. So once I've got these russets cut into beautiful 2-inch wedges like this, I'm gonna scoot them into my oil and herbs and garlic. Then I'm gonna go over to the fridge, grab my salted chicken and drop that into the bowl. Again, this has been in the fridge for about 45 to 60 minutes. Then I'll just jump in and toss to get everything combined. And I especially want to make sure that the garlic is getting evenly spread out, especially on the chicken, because for some reason it tends to congregate on the backside of the thigh. And that's not the part that's going to be exposed to the dry heat of the oven. And I just like to make sure that the garlic is a little bit more biased towards the skin side, because that's the side that's going to get nice and sweet and roasty. But look at that, that looks so delicious. And it smells so lemony too. I'm hyped about this right now. Also, if you're wondering how far in advance you can toss all of this to combine to marinate, I would say not that far in advance, because once there's salt and oil and herbs, especially on the potatoes, moisture is going to get drawn out, and that's going to change the cooking environment pretty significantly. So I wouldn't really mess with it. I wouldn't go longer than maybe an hour in advance. Okay, once everything's tossed to combine here, I'm going to grab a 9x13 metal baking dish or a cake pan, and then I'm going to diligently lay out my potatoes in 3 flat rows like this. If you're wondering about using a ceramic baking dish, if that's all you have, it can work. I prefer the metal baking dish because of the heat transfer, especially when I go to put this in the oven. I'm gonna be putting it on a pizza steel, which I always keep in my oven. If you don't have a pizza steel, you're totally fine. Just kind of a nice to have, because so much extra heat can get transferred into the bottom of the food. That not only helps evaporate the chicken stock that we're gonna be adding in a second, but it also helps fry up the potatoes and gives them this nice golden brown darkness that's really, really flavorful. Ceramic baking dishes are really good for keeping heat localized, but they also tend to create steam and trap moisture, which isn't really what we want for this. Also, if I didn't mention it earlier, I think the proper amount of potatoes is somewhere between 2 and 3 large russets. It kind of just depends on how large you cut them and how many can fit in your particular pan. This is about 2.5 russets actually, now that I'm looking at it. And everything's nicely snugged in and lined up, so we're looking good. Then I'm gonna take my garlicky chicken thighs and lay those out on top in a way where there's not a ton of overlap with the chicken. And again, if there's a bunch of garlic sitting on the bottom, I'll just migrate that to the top side. And then I'll snug that up, move these around so that they're not touching. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. The final step here is to add in 150 grams of store-bought box chicken stock. Or if you have homemade flavorful chicken stock, by all means use that. And I'm just gonna pour that evenly throughout so that it gives me a solid base layer of chicken stock throughout the entire tray. This is the weirdest part of this entire recipe, for sure, but it's also the part that makes it taste the best. Having the potatoes sitting in chicken stock like this helps them braise, or it cooks them with wet heat early on, which makes them nice and tender. Then it reduces into this very, very concentrated roasty chicken thing that sticks to the bottom of the pan and helps fry the potatoes. And it comes together into this just like, I don't even know, it's like chicken goo that has all of the chicken drippings, potato starch, all the herbs, all the lemon. It's hyper concentrated and it's just like super, super tasty. And it's just like a weird way to do it, but it's actually the thing that makes this dish so sick in the first place. So stick with me, it's really gonna work out. Once The stock is in the pan. I'm gonna move this thing over to a preheated 350 oven, and I'm gonna bake this for about 70 to 90 minutes. No convection though, because that hot air is mainly gonna get blown right on top of the chicken skin, which is gonna make it get really dark golden brown and dried out well before the chicken itself is cooked through or the potatoes are cooked through. Now, while that cooks, I quickly wanna thank Flair Espresso for sponsoring this video. This is the Flair 49 Pro manual espresso machine. And I think it's pretty freaking cool because it makes great tasting espresso while giving you a very enjoyable tactile analog coffee making experience. I think this thing is for anyone who wants to have good tasting espresso at home, or for coffee nerds who really want to dial in the best possible tasting espresso shot at home. I like this thing because it feels really tactile and heavy duty. That's because it's made out of cast aluminum and stainless steel, and moving the lever up and down feels heavy, feels analog, and it just adds one more layer of enjoyment to the coffee making experience that you don't get when you just click a plastic button on an espresso machine. The thing that I like about this is that you don't need to be a barista to get a great result. You can use store-bought pre-ground coffee and throw it into this pressurized portafilter basket, then throw some boiling water into the cylinder and just lower the lever, managing the pressure on this simple little pressure gauge. So if you want to have some fun making what I think is pretty delicious cafe quality espresso at home, use my code BrianXFlair49 to get 10 bucks off your first order. I'll throw a link in the description. Again, the code is BrianXFlair49. Ooh. And after about 90 minutes or so, I'm gonna come back and take a look at the chicken. I'm gonna pull it out and check the temperature of the chicken. Now, a lot of people will tell you that chicken is done cooking, or at least it's safe to eat at 165 Fahrenheit, which is true, but I don't think it's good to eat until it's reached about 185 F. That's because for chicken thighs, they're actually better the further you cook them. It's kind of like chuck or brisket or something like that, where you're melting all of the internal collagen and rendering all of that intramuscular fat, and that just makes it more juicy, more tender, and almost shreddable. So I'm gonna check the temp real quick, and we are at about 184, which is perfect. Oh my God, dude. It just smells so special. Roasted lemon, that's like the main thing that you get. And I don't know of any other dish that really has that smell, and it just makes my mouth water. I'm so excited to eat this, but we can't serve it right away. We actually have to let this rest for about 15 to 30 minutes for two very important reasons. Number one is it will allow the pectin in the potatoes to fully set up. At this point, they are super, super tender because we cooked them with wet heat and then roasted them for a while longer. So right now, if we were to put a spatula in there and scrape them up, they would probably crumble and fall apart. Cooling them lets that pectin come back together. And then the more obvious second reason is that it allows the juiciness in that chicken to kind of set into the protein. If we were to take a bite right now, all that juice would run out and the chicken would eat a little bit drier. So I'm gonna give this about 20 minutes and I'll check back then. 20 minutes later, this thing's looking good to go. The potatoes are fully set. We got roasty chicken. The sauce has kind of been absorbed into those potatoes, and you certainly could just scoop this out onto a plate and serve it right now. But there is one little finishing detail that I think makes this dish that much more pro, that adds about 3 to 4 minutes of work, but it's really, really gonna be worth it. So the first step is just taking the chicken thighs off of the potatoes and setting them aside on a plate here. Now I've got a big serving platter, and then carefully scoop out my potatoes in a way that doesn't break them down and lay them out on this plate in a nice pile. As you can see, these potatoes are just completely saturated with roasty garlic and reduced chicken stock. Ooh, man, they look so good. The potatoes alone are worth making. Okay, as you can see though, there is a bunch of flavorful stuff left in this pan, especially all around the inner edges here, and we don't want to waste that. We can actually turn this into a little bit of delicious sauce to put on top of the chicken. So what I'm gonna do is put these potatoes over here into a low oven. I've turned it down to about 175. I'll put the chicken in there too, just to keep it warm. Then I'm going to take my pan and add in maybe about 50 to 75 grams of store-bought chicken stock. And then I'll come back with a wooden spoon and scrape up all that nice brown stuff around the edges and get any fondy bits that are on the pan scraped up and dissolved into the rest of the liquid here. It would be a real shame to let all this roasty chicken stuff go to waste. This is definitely not gonna be a step that you see happening at Greek Easter celebrations, but I don't know, the chef boy in me just really wants to convert maximum chicken flavor into the final dish. And once I've got all that roasty chicken stuff scraped up, I'm gonna transfer this over into a little saucepan here. I'm gonna bring it up to a really quick simmer and then reduce it down for, I don't know, maybe about 2 minutes or so, just enough to kind of get it re-thickened up. There is some potato starch in here from those roasted potatoes, so that's gonna help thicken it. And we don't wanna go too crazy. We're not trying to make this a thicker sauce. We're trying to make more of a last minute, lemony, roasty chicken jus. As you can see though, there is a little bit of olive oil and chicken fat sitting on top, which is fine. But to get that kind of emulsified a bit, and to also just bring a touch of a zippy freshness to this sauce, I'm gonna add in just a very, very small amount of mustard, maybe like 3 grams. If you go too far, the sharpness of that mustard is gonna get in the way of the dish. And honestly, it's gonna taste a little bit mustardy. But a little bit, I don't know, it just brings some life to the final dish that I like a lot. You can leave it out for sure if you're not a mustard fan. This is Grey Poupon, by the way. I wouldn't sub any other kind of mustard. Make it sure it's nice Dijon. All right, as you can see, it's reducing. Bubbles are getting bigger. We're gonna let this go for another 60 seconds or so. Again, nothing crazy, just until the sauce can kind of leave a trail when I pass my whisk through it. You can also not do this step. Like I said before, that dish after 20 minutes of resting is totally good to go. It's super delicious, and you could just put it all on a platter right away and people are gonna be very, very happy. This is just sort of another 5% you can add on top to make it a little fancier and a little bit more tied together. Having a little bit of sauce that's on the potatoes and the chicken, it just brings it to another level. It makes the two things kind of more cohesive. Okay, and after about 2 minutes of reduction, you can see the bubbles have started to get big. And when I pass my whisk through, I'm leaving a trail. That's how I know it's good to go. So I'm gonna pull it off heat now and get that stuff out of the oven. One more quick appreciation for these potatoes too. Now that they're fully set up and warmed through. Now to serve this, I'm just gonna scoop my chicken on top of the potatoes like this. Then I'll take my roasty, mustardy chicken jus and put just a little bit on top. I don't wanna drench this dish at all because that will take away from the focus on the deliciousness and textures of the potatoes and chicken. Just enough to kind of wet things and to bring, again, a touch of zip from that mustard and to turn up the volume on that chicken flavor a little bit. Then one more final touch is just to add some fresh chopped parsley on top to make it look good and to hit it with a touch more freshness. Ooh, that looks so good. And then just a tiny, tiny bit of lemon on top. This dish is mainly about the flavors of olive oil, oregano, and lemon. And there we go, dude. There we go, dude. To me, that is just textbook, beautiful Greek chicken and potatoes. I really think that we got this dish to a point that is quite special. This is kind of a working man's dish, and I've been served it at a lot of Greek family gatherings because I used to have a Greek girlfriend when I was in high school. Shout out Elena, what's up? If you're watching, sorry for being that way. But yeah, I had the privilege of eating at Greek Easter, and this is one of the things that they served, and it was delicious. And I'm basing this dish off of my memories of that and just trying to turn up the saturation and volume on all of the stuff that I really love about it. Chicken and potatoes. I don't think it gets better than that. I'm gonna start with a potato here. Man, texturally, that is a frickin' dream. It is simultaneously toothsome and firm and creamy and tender. I don't know how it gets that way, but the way that we cook these with the wet heat into the roast gives you this dynamic eating experience that just texturally is nothing, it's not like anything else I've ever made. And it's saturated with flavor. It's chickeny, it's lemony. There's a lot of olive oil flavor. You get all those herbs. And for the chicken. Juicy ass meat, check. Well-rendered skin, check. Flavorful, check. It's just really good roast chicken. It's really good roast chicken. If you guys wanna make this recipe, which I really think you should, I'm gonna throw the short version down in the description beneath this video. Then I'm gonna throw you a link to the long version at my blog over at brianlagerstrom.com so you can follow along and get a little bit more detail and some really good photos. As always, guys, thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one.